Are you disappointed that your business has shifted 80-20, you said delivery and drive-through and carry-out, to 20% dining room? Have you built buildings now that are the wrong size because of your only 20% interior dining?
Yeah, I think disappointed is
Are you going to build differently?
yeah, we're actually working on a new prototype. Obviously, as a restaurateur, anybody wants someone to come in and experience your restaurant, right? You want the food piping hot off the plate. No different if you had friends over to your house, right? You want them to come over, see that you clean the living room up, threw the stuff under the couch. You don't get that as much. And the prototype, yeah, the prototype of 10 years ago doesn't work, but you can make it work. So even though 80% is going out, we don't have a curbside pickup for a reason. People come in. It's very hard to have drive-through and curbside, based on the lot sizes. So, we're looking at lot sizes and trying to reduce costs for franchisees going forward. But we positioned our app order pickup in a way that we still have interaction with the guests. We actually keep our delivery behind the line and make sure that the delivery person understands the instructions, has everything. So our new prototype is in development, and it'll certainly have less seats, probably a third less seats. Our brothers always say the same thing. You can't build a restaurant for the first month, right? You'd love to have all those seats for the first month. When the weather is great, you do have the patio, but yes, you absolutely have to change your prototype, but you can't change your focus and outlook that you still have to take care of that guest. And even delivery drivers are our guests, because if they're not happy with us, they're just dropping food on the doorsteps.
Anyone else?
You guys have such a large menu of variety. How do you keep things consistent across all your menu items and across all your locations?
Yeah, it's not easy to do. We've actually stopped putting pizza in some locations. Sadly, it's the easiest product to make and to get right, but it's the least effective use of real estate. So we're making some tough decisions like that. We're actually in the middle of a project right now. The entire last year, we're doing a recipe project where we've had a cross-functional team look at every single recipe, every single ingredient, every single process. So just to give you an example, how you standardize things, we used to say, salt and pepper on the burger. Now it's 3 shakes. We used to say swirl the mayonnaise. Well, now it's 3 swirls starting from the inside out. So we're trying to standardize things. We're looking for single-use ingredients. That's really important in your restaurant. If you have single-use ingredients, find another use for it or get it out of your restaurant, because it only makes things complicated. And the other thing that I think to answer your question is, the reason why restaurants now get so many things wrong is because it is so complicated. You have to simplify processes, not just menus, right? You don't have to spend $50,000 on a time and motion study, but stand there and say, okay, how long does it take to make a bone of beef? How long does it take to make a pizza? How long does it take to make a chicken sandwich? How many of those can I possibly do in an hour? How many people do I need to do that? How many cars can 2 people in the drive-thru handle? For every 10 cars, you add another person. We're looking at those types of processes to make it simple for the people who work with us. The other thing, and I think this is valuable for all of you, people who don't speak English as a first language don't think like you. My wife is from Honduras, and I've been married for 25 years, so I've had 25 years of experience, and I still forget the adjective comes after the noun. So as we create these great KDS screens, they're not reading. They're not reading. They're looking for keywords, and they're getting it wrong. So I'll just share a specific example, because it might help. We had a lot of trouble recently between getting this gentleman his combo and a beef sandwich. They were mixing them up. We used to have on the screen reg, R-E-G, for regular size, and LG for large size. We took out reg, because they were reading reg, and that's all they got, and they made a beef sandwich. So you have to take all that into account. You have to simplify it. You have to make sure everything's consistent. And if it's a dog from a resource standpoint, have the courage to get rid of it.
as speaking earlier, I keep the lights on at the Buona Beef at 22nd and Wolf, so going there so much. One of my favorite things is having people from out of town who've never had a beef sandwich, bringing them there. As you guys continue to expand, and how do you kind of choose the locations out of state where people haven't had beef sandwiches, along with how do you kind of promote a beef sandwich? Because most people in the room here have had a beef sandwich. But we go out of state, I've had family in from Omaha, and they're like, what's a beef sandwich? And it's like, you know, what's wrong with you? But how do you pick the location, and how do you help promote a beef sandwich?
Yeah, that's a great question. A year ago, I had no idea what a beef sandwich was either. I've lived in Texas for the last 20 years of my life, and I actually went to the first Portillo's that opened up down there, and I'm like, what is this stuff? So your point is extremely valid. Number one, we're targeting markets where Chicagoans go for the winter or retire. Florida, Arizona, two of our bigger areas, as well as where our first one's going to be in Tennessee. Sometimes you go with the businesses. So what are we doing? Number one, we're revamping our visual menu to explain what wet means. I can say that to this group, right? So we're actually, you'll see it in about a month or so, implementing a star system. So 1 star is dry, 2 stars is regular, 3 stars is dip, 4 stars is baptized. And with little instructions. So it's really important that you take the time to explain what that is to guests. My son was just in town, as Mario knows. I hadn't seen him since May. He lives in Maryland, he lived in New York before that. I said, I'm going to take you for a beef sandwich. I'm going to warn you, your bread's going to be wet. What do you mean? I said, you just got to trust me. So what we're also doing, and I think if any of you do this, even if it's a different part of town, right? Because if you're over in Rosemont, it's a whole different guest structure than Skokie. Right? Skokie is a very different clientele. We're going to get out there with our Buona beef truck and give people samples to get in their mouth. We're going to tell it to them when they're not paying for it. We're going to explain it to them. You go on morning shows, you do what you got to do. But you can't assume people just get it because we're a household name here, right? So that's really the strategy we're taking.
Do you advertise towards churches?
Yeah. So no, we don't advertise towards specific groups. But one of the things, in case you only hear this question, you asked if we advertise towards churches. So we don't specifically advertise towards specific groups other than hungry people. But what we do a lot of is we do very specific local store marketing. So we've done benefit nights for years. A church group is an outstanding candidate for a benefit night where if they're trying to raise money for new Bibles or a trip to a mission or whatever that is, it's a great way to kind of get that community feeling. So we focus on groups in our marketing is how can we get those groups and take care of them the way they want to be taken care of. But I would tell you that in my experience over the years, if I'm going to partner with his church, your church is going to be upset, and the mosque is going to be upset, and the synagogue is going to be upset. So we try and find a way to make sure everyone knows they're included.
They're very loyal.
Absolutely.
From one to another, you're just building business.
Absolutely. We often, in these marketing pieces, we often give free meals to the spiritual leader. So, and they choose the day. So, Wednesdays are great nights for church benefit nights because they have services, many groups. So we can get them to come in. We just partnered in Lombard in our Rainbow Cone location there. Again, just by guest service, my director of operations was out talking to guests in the dining room, talked to a couple who said, yeah, Ramadan's coming up. And they said, well, that's great. How can we help you celebrate that? We're staying open 4 Fridays in a row, later than we normally do, so that they can eat after their fast is over and also create a benefit night for them so they can raise money for their organization. So sometimes just by talking to people, you create great relationships that will last for years. And look, it's not a sales strategy. You have to be a local celebrity to be successful in a restaurant. I don't care what your city is, you have to be that local celebrity, whether you're going to Chamber of Commerce meetings or, we get involved with libraries, we get involved with churches, we get involved with areas where people do things that they're passionate about, and that's how you create that community.
was wondering, have you done much with allergens, like gluten-free, or had to do much with that on your menus?
Yeah,
How do you
allergens.
deal with that?
Allergens are a very dangerous road to go down. Many people can't describe their own allergies to you, which is dumbfounding to me. So, one, we've made the step, which most brands have, we're not unique, to keep our allergen information online. The danger when you have it on paper is that it becomes outdated. So that's the first thing we did, was we moved it all online, and we have a QR code they can scan. The second, and I would recommend this to any restaurant operator, you should tell people, and your lawyer will tell you the same thing, we don't guarantee against allergens. Here's what's in our items. Now, that being said, we're gonna go above and beyond. So I was in a Rainbow Cone, and a lady asked me, the specific thing is in your ice cream. I said, I don't know, let me go find out. I went back to the freezer, took a picture of the label, said, you tell me if it's in there or not. Right, on our menu boards, it says, and actually ironically you asked that, we're on our drive-through menu boards, we're making a change in April where it's gonna be much larger. It says, please tell us if you have an allergy. In Rainbow Cone specifically, so many things have nuts in the ice cream. If you guys haven't had Palmer House, by the way, one of the best ice creams around, but it has nuts in it, as well as cherries. We say, please let us know beforehand. What we found is that people would order, then come to the window and say, hey, does the peanut butter ice cream have nuts in it? Actual question. So we try and be very kind, and I can tell you, from Buona, we have gluten-free pitas. You can get your pizzas or your sandwiches on. We have a vegan beef. We have a vegan cheese that we do. In Rainbow Cone, our specific procedure is above and beyond, but I think it's that important. If you tell us you have a nut allergy, number one, we take that employee, takes his gloves off or her gloves off, washes their hands, puts on new gloves, grabs a new utensil from the back, goes into the freezer to scoop ice cream out of a fresh tub. So that's how we handle allergens in Rainbow Cone. We take it very seriously, but at the same time, you can't know what they mean sometimes, so you have to leave the decision making up to them.
On Rainbow Cone, was that the original here in Chicago? And secondly, are you partnered with them, or do you now own Rainbow Cone?
It's actually a fantastic story. So the original Rainbow Cone, which will turn 100 next year, is still standing, right? You all know where it is in Beverly. Many of you know where it is. Yeah, so it's still there. That family has been running that business they ran it for 96, 97 years. Lynn Sapp, who is the granddaughter of the original founders, has no children to pass it on to. She wanted to move to Florida, enjoy her life. Good for her. She sought us out as a family business who would uphold the Rainbow Cone tradition. I'm extremely proud of that. Not that I had anything to do with it. Right, but I'm extremely proud of that they sought us out, said, hey, we don't want you to change a bunch of things. Great. So we actually own the business now. Lynn Sapp is an advisor to us. She's still on our payroll, probably, for a number of things. I'll see her next week at our grand opening in Orlando. She comes a lot of our grand openings. So it's been a great partnership, and if any of you guys take over something, here's a lesson for you. The first year in our CEO, Joe Buonavolonto II, extremely smart to say this, we don't change a thing for the first year. We don't change how they swept the floor. We don't change where they stored the ice cream. We don't change how the office was arranged. We don't change a thing until we know what it is. And we took that approach, and now look, we've expanded the business where we've created our slice creations to kind of mimic the Rainbow Cone. The magic of Rainbow Cone is the slicing of ice cream. In about 3 weeks, we'll bring out a junior version of the Rainbow Cone that will be sliced, and junior of the slice creations, because it is a full day commitment sometimes to eat a Rainbow Cone. So it's been a great partnership, and we've had that history to kind of fall back on, because she stayed involved and still talks your ear off and loves the brand like it was the day she started. But yeah, it's ours.
Brilliant, brilliant. Any questions on this side? Yeah. Over here, John.
On franchising, was that a conscious decision
To go toward Tennessee instead of the Chicago area. So it's all of Chicago now going to be locally owned by Buona, both Rainbow Cone and Buona, and our other states all going to be franchises. or is that a mix?
Yeah, it's gonna be a mix. So Tennessee wasn't on our radar, but we had a group who was a really strong franchise group who said, I have to bring this to Tennessee. We have software models and things that say the brand's gonna work. We have to put in some work to make sure that we introduce Tennessee to beef, but that was not planned. So, you know, we're gonna have a mix. We just sold a Buona in Wisconsin, so they won't be ours. We're gonna get first right of refusal in the Chicago area, but we're gonna keep opening our restaurants. But we're, you know, as you know from a supply chain standpoint, you can't just throw darts at a map everywhere and have one everywhere. So we're gonna be smart about it, and if we get an operator that's so good that it blows our plan out of the water, we're gonna blow our plan out of the water.
Actually, you touched on my question, which was supply chain. Given that you have gone to Arizona and Florida, I was curious about how you manage that, and since you're so concentrated here.
Yeah, supply chain, as you all know, is a nightmare, even when it's in your own city. So we are partnered with you know, one major supplier, and we are partnered with the second one that the first one bought up anyway. So that made it somewhat easy for us. What we have to do now is we have to figure out as we go to different locations is how do we get enough of our proprietary items in stock? Because as you know, there's certain case count minimums, and if we can't do a 10 case count minimum, they're not going to carry it, right? To a supplier, real estate is their biggest asset. If there's shelf space, they're going to use that shelf space to make maximum profit for them. So what do? So we had to decide what is non-negotiable, what is negotiable, and what is local. So our beef, non-negotiable. Our beef will go to Tennessee, fresh, not frozen. We've created that relationship. That was a non-negotiable, as you might imagine, right? Are we going to get fresh Toronto bread in Tennessee? Nope. But we are going to have a substitute that'll be just as good. But obviously, we can't have Toronto drive their trucks from Berwyn to Nashville. We asked. They said no. And then you have to make decisions about local purchases. Some of the hardest things to do, as you know, are packaging and produce. So, you know, as we get larger, I don't know that we'll go this route or not, but I've been in brands where you have produce suppliers in those markets who are inspected by us and regulated by us. We don't own them, but they're an approved supplier. And we let people get produce locally. Obviously, that lowers your case count from your major supplier, which makes it difficult sometimes. Packaging, we're not going to find pink polka dot rainbow packaging off the shelf in Tennessee. That's a non-negotiable, so that's going to go down. The long-handled soda spoon that we have in Rainbow Cone, yeah, we're gonna source that locally. So you have to make some decisions about, okay, what's really important and what's not important, and what's kind of important. And the cloud hanging over all of that is cost. We could get the Cadillac for everything, and your ice cream cone will be $111. So you have to be realistic about it as well. But you have to preserve your brand, and you have to preserve your flavor, you have to preserve your image most of all. And look, sometimes with franchising, you have to tell people, you know, have you ever had one of our rainbow cakes? So you know there's a layer of cake in that rainbow cake, so that's hard to get. It's gonna be a 5 to 6 week lead time. So it's not a perishable item. It has a very long shelf life in the freezer. So it's not like going down and getting your stuff. So we have to make sure that they have enough lead time and understand that. At the same time, you have to be vigilant about keeping people honest to your purchasing program. Because once it goes astray, it's that scene from The Founder, right? When they were serving tacos and chicken and whatever else. Now you don't have a brand anymore.
We got about 5 more minutes, gentlemen of the end.
I know you work a lot with franchises. What are the 3 most, I won't call mistakes, but teachable moments that you have to have with them?
Most of them come in the first couple of months. I like, you know, if you think of franchising, and this will shock you coming from someone who's dealt with franchises for 30 years, franchising is a bad model on paper. Franchisees want bottom line profit. That's how they feed their family. Franchisors want what? top line sales, so we can charge royalties. So on paper, the model is flawed. And so you have to really understand how to become partners, even though you're not partners, right? So I think that's the first thing. It's really educating the franchisee as to what the model is. Because many of them think, oh, it's like the iTunes agreement, right? They didn't read that back in the day. They just wanted their songs. And then when Apple was charging them something, it was, well, why are you doing this? It was in the agreement. So the first challenge is really having them understand what the responsibilities and rights of each party are. And that's very difficult to convey. This will sound crass, but they don't own anything. As a franchisee, you don't own anything. There's no Chick-fil-A franchisee who owns a thing. So that's hard for them to get their head around. And there's a model, it's kind of an alligator chart that I've always used. When you first open a franchise, the franchisor's value is here, and the franchisee's knowledge is here. And as that chart goes on with experience, you get to a crossroads where if you're not still providing value as a franchisor, they start to think, why am I paying royalties? I don't need you people. I can do this all by myself. They don't realize they're paying for the trademarks and the recipes and the work that we do. So that's number one. Number two, you have to tell people that they likely won't become rich in the first year. We have franchisees who become distraught after 3 months. You did that for 10 years, you owned restaurants. Were you profitable after 3 months? Not a chance. But they're dumbfounded that they're not profitable. Because I bought this brand because I love it. So everyone's gonna love it. So you have to really set expectations on profitability. And number three, and 3A, you have to set expectations on their life, what it's gonna become for the next year, and how much they're gonna work. And really, what does that mean to their family? You have a lot of husband and wife teams, which is a really bad model for franchising. Not because they're not compatible, it's hard to cut it off. So they work together all day, then they talk about it in the car, then they make dinner, or probably order because they're too tired, and they keep talking about it, and it never goes away. And you have to really share that with people, and that's the hard part about franchising. Once you can get over that hump, that's hard, but that it usually works out after that. The other thing that they don't know is that a franchisor collecting a 2 or 3 or 4% national marketing fee does not solve all your problems. They have to be local marketers. They have to become that brand ambassador. They have to become the local celebrity. I could show you the spreadsheets we have for Rainbow Cone. We have 50, 60 items we're working on each restaurant right now to become part of the community. So I think those are the successes, the failures. The good part, of course, the right franchisee will work till their fingers bleed and their eyes fall out to make their business successful. And that's what's inspiring about franchising. You know, I take that very seriously. They're putting their family's well-being on the line by signing that contract. If their franchise doesn't work, I still go home and eat with my wife at the same level, unless it happens a lot. So there's a lot of respect for that relationship. It's a very courageous act to open a restaurant, franchise or not, and I think you have to respect that as a franchisor.
Nicely said, thank you. One more question, gentleman over here.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, what do you think quick service restaurants, more specifically, and restaurants in general, can do to improve the dining experience, since so many aspects of the dining experience, like taking the orders or even sometimes even preparing the food. You know, we've seen in the National Restaurant Association show that there are so many automatizations processes being done now by machines. What do you think quick service restaurants or restaurants can do to improve the dining experience beyond the checkout process?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of layers to that answer. The first thing is you have to understand who your true customer is. It's the people who work for you. If your employees are not happy, you have no chance. You have no chance. You've been to brands who you know are kind of on the ropes, and the employees are not happy and they're not motivated. Everything else you're going to do after that, what does it matter? You can have the best system in the world, and if he's miserable, he's going to be miserable. So treat your people great and make sure they're happy and have high standards, hire slow, fire quick. That's number one. Number two, you have to test things with people. Things seem very simple to us because we invented it and we created the process and we know what we're doing, right? But just like I came here and they said, how do you want your beef? In bread, I guess? Well, they were asking me, do you want dipped, whatever. Don't assume people know what you're talking about. Take control of their happiness and don't let them leave until they're happy. Ask the right questions. Make suggestions, not to make money. We offer giardiniera on our beef, not because it's 75 cents, because honestly, it's not a lot of money, but because that's how beef should be eaten for most people. Create a great experience. And beyond that, make it easy for people. People have very low expectations of quick service restaurants. Right? If you walked into a Taco Bell, are you expecting like 5-star service? No offense to Taco Bell, right? They're a great chain. But the expectations are low. If you went into a melting pot, you wouldn't accept Taco Bell service because the price point is different. Treat people like you're at the melting pot or fogo de chao, even though they're paying quick service prices. People will come back when they're taken care of for an experience. One of the things I've always done, just as a usable tip, is in to-go bags, we'll have little thank you cards, and we'll write random thank you cards and drop them in to-go bags. Handwritten thank yous. Who expects that? Who expects to have the door open for them at a Burger King? Well, we try and do it if we can at a Buona beef. Who expects to have your trash taken away for you? Give them those unexpected delights. That's how you set yourself apart from everybody else. Because really, is there that much difference between brand to brand to brand sometimes? But if you look at our Jersey Mikes, they make them wear uncomfortable uniforms. They have to pick up and slice every single order. Have you ever seen a short staff Jersey Mikes? Never. Why? It's a fantastic brand and they treat their people great. So that's what I would do. Treat your own people great and surprise and delight your guests and make it simple for them to be happy.
How about that? How about a hand for Steve?